Well, Shaka, we're going to start the countdown in 4 minutes. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, a very warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Shakir Zainal, and I am the head of the MBRIF, joining you for another exciting innovation journey episodes, where we bring you conversations with innovators, dive into their experience, which helps other founders learn how to accelerate their growth and maximize impact. This session will run for approximately 45 minutes with 25 to 30 minutes allocated for the main discussion, followed by Q&A session lasting a maximum of 15 minutes. Please type your questions in the comment section throughout, and we will do our best to post as many of them as we can with today's guest during the Q&A. Moving quickly on our guest for this episode, I am extremely pleased to introduce Nicholas Weston, CEO and co-founder of UDrive, a business leader, entrepreneur, investor, and advisor. Nicholas has forged a formidable career spanning 20 years in which he had led teams, developed product, and built on the ground presence in India, Africa, Middle East, and United States across multiple industries. You will get to hear firsthand from Nicholas, and he has used his variety experience to shape up and propel business forward. Welcome, Nicholas. It is a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me. It's going to be a great episode.
Fantastic. So, Nicholas, you are now more definitely widely known as a co-founder of a viral product like UDrive. But before this, you had a corporate career, like I do now. Okay, how did you make the transition? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's breaking up, I think, on your side.
Yeah. So let me repeat the question. You had a corporate career, right? Previously, now you have moved to be a co-founder. So how did you make this transition? I'm also have a corporate career, so I wanted to be encouraged to take that step like you.
I think it's very interesting how people perceive corporate careers versus entrepreneurial or startup careers. I think a corporate career is what you make it. So if you want it to be, a little cog in a big engine, you can make it like that, and you can be considered that. But effectively, you have products, you have departments, you have new ventures that companies build. I was very fortunate. I worked in a company 15 years that was building new product every single month. Was going into new markets. So effectively, every 6 months, we were building something new to target a new market, or to build a bridge between two ecosystems, or one ecosystem where you got buyers and sellers on either side. So I think transitioning into a startup or a scale up is it's not that big of a difference. It's just you don't have as much resources available, right? You can't just go to HR and ask for get me 10 people. Right, just that doesn't exist. You are the person. You are HR. You are sales. You are marketing. And as you become more and more successful, So for me, it was nice move. It was quite a gradual move, and it wasn't a big shock to the system like you would imagine, where people really talk about. I was in corporate and I had billion-dollar company behind me. It was a gradual, smooth process for me.
Fantastic. So all the companies starts with an idea, and I really wanted to know, how, what inspired you, or what did really sparked or triggered, the idea of UDrive?
I think UDrive, prior to becoming UDrive, was a traditional car rental company. My co-founder Hasib was running a car rental company with traditional daily rentals and monthly rentals, and that was very successful. But there was a huge audience of customers we couldn't work with because we were taking 1,000 dirham deposits. You had to rent the car for the day. There was pickup and drop off, and so these points are all very frictional in terms of somebody just getting in a car and riding. So what we did was we looked around what was going on in the world, and we noticed obviously car sharing is picking up, and being a car rental company, we had the assets. We just needed to invest in the technology, and that's what we did. So by investing in the technology, what we did was we removed all of the friction of deposits, where do you park, access to the car for the minute. And I think that's where the UDrive journey really started. We took an incumbent old model and we digitized it. So we added technology to an old business model. But by adding the technology, we're able to change the business model itself from 1 day down to 1 minute. And I think that was the catalyst that sparked the idea. Was there's more money on the table for people we're not servicing than there is on the table for people we are servicing. And that blue ocean is what we went after. And that's what we're going after today.
Fantastic. Nick, I believe that, every human being on this earth has an idea, and there are many aspiring entrepreneurs that individuals have many ideas and dreams. Now, if you look back at your journey with UDrive, what would you say are those, I will say, crucial points that help entrepreneurs successful transition from an idea to an execution?
Being honest with yourself. So it's it's difficult because entrepreneurs get quite excited about their idea and changing the world, and being able to make the world bend to your thoughts is much more complicated than you bending your thoughts to the world and then figuring out a way how to bring the world towards your vision, right? And sometimes you just have to take that vision and break it up into small little parcels and take each parcel on one by one. Saying you're going to change the world is very different than actually changing the world. And to do that, you have to execute, you have to have vision, you have to have resilience. And I think a lot of startups, when they're started, they have great ideas, great vision, they might even have lots of capital. But the major issue is that going from an idea, which you can have in a split second, to actually implementing that idea and working with the customer base, the government entities, etc., whoever you're working with, is the hardest part. And I think being realistic and honest with yourself, you don't have to transmit that externally to anybody, but internalize it and think to yourself, how can I make these changes? And if I am changing the way an industry works, that industry has its own way. And to change them, or to change people who are operating in that industry, you have to change their mindset too. So you need to make sure that it's really seamless for the customer, that when they do go to use it, the experience is really, really simple. So even with UDrive, car rental is quite complex when you think about it. You're saying, oh, I want to digitize this car. Yeah, but you've got to install IoT. You've got to take an analog device and make it digital. You have to give an app that is really, really easy to use, because people don't use apps to rent a car, right? So when we started, this wasn't a known thing. And so we had to make it like Duplo. Everybody plays with Lego, and there's different versions of Lego. We tried to build the platform so that it was like Duplo, which is what you give to 2- and 3-year-olds. And that's not to say what our customers are. That's when you open the app, you see the icons and you click it and then you book it. There's no complication. It's just super simple. So I think this is what entrepreneurs have to be thinking about, is honesty towards themselves of what they actually have to do to achieve their end goal of building that product and that company. Yeah, I think there's some technical difficulties with Shaka's camera. Okay, well, let's just wait for Shaka to come back online.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Fantastic, fantastic.
you.
Yeah, I was actually
Well,
asking you about, yeah, sorry, I was asking about the, you drive business model. You started off with just a basic renting model. All the
yeah.
startup usually start with a very simple model. And then how do you see your company, I mean, or you drive growing and the peer-to-peer model transforming with times, you think?
I, so we really believe in the P2P model. And I think it's a model that everybody will move towards, because what you're really doing with a P2P model is you're allowing more utilization of an asset somebody else has paid for. So in the traditional world, the car rental companies buy the car and then they rent it to many, many people, but it's basically one to many. In the P2P world, it's many to many, right? So you have 10 people that own 10 cars renting it to 100 people. So it's 10 people per car. And this is better for the environment. This is better for the whole world in general, because you're effectively fractionalizing the asset and you're making more use of it over a short period of time. So we believe in the P2P space. We don't believe right now the region is ready for P2P on a whole let's go make it happen side of things. We will be launching P2P products, and we'll be doing it in line with our regulatory partners if it's required, or with open markets like in Saudi Arabia. So, but it's something we will gradually phase into. It won't be a pivot for us. It'll be an organic transition. Right now, we're growing so fast that if I want 1,000 cars, I can't go and spend time trying to convince 1,000 people to give me 1,000 cars. It's much easier to go to 2 companies and convince them to give me 500 cars each. And then we can put the cars on the platform, and then our demand base, which is the customers needing the car, have access. So to answer the question, the reality is there's so much growth in taking our cars and then fractionalizing them to 1 minute, compared to the P2P space, which will come probably within, we think it will really kick in 1 to 3 years. And that will come with maturity of the market and people feeling really comfortable in turning their car into a revenue generating asset.
Great. So with Web 3.0 and coming into full effect, enabling true decentralization of resources and sustainability is becoming the need of our, how do you see business like yours playing a part in this new paradigm shift?
Eventually we will, so UDrive technically is semi fintech, because what we do is we take a 2 or 3 year illiquid asset, which is a lease for 3 years, to one person, which effectively is UDrive, and then we fractionalize it down to 1 minute and 1 meter, so that you can have it for 1 minute and 1 meter. So we break it up into small little parcels. So that is, in the business model, that's fractionalization. It's not decentralization, but you're effectively decentralizing it amongst thousands of customers over its life, rather than one customer over its life. And so we're psychologically ready. I'm a big believer in blockchain and crypto. I have a podcast on it, and these are very good concepts for future business models. Moving into the Web3 environment, which is self-custody of assets, and moving into the metaverse. Of course, we have the metaverse assembly today in Dubai, which is actually just taking place down the road. So there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment that is forcing businesses to move into this space. So UDrive itself as a business, if we talk about the physical world, it's already blending, Web 2.0, which is digitalization of everything, using your mobile for access to everything, into the world where you're not necessarily the owner of the assets, or it's easy access to assets plus self-custody of the assets themselves. So metaverse, where would we end up in the metaverse? Maybe you'll get a UDrive in the metaverse to drive from one place to another, although that would be instantaneously, depending on what we want to do. We are in the process of figuring out with certain Dubai government entities who are our investors or partners to bring the UDrive ecosystem into the virtual environment. And so we are working towards it. But in reality, the needs of today, right now, are people need to move their physical body from one place to another. And then so that's our big focus right now. But it doesn't mean that we're opposed to being in the virtual environment or doing more cool stuff with our products itself.
Nick, I'm sure you make a lot of decision during the day, during the week. But if you look back at your journey as a business and a company, if you had to point out that feature or that one business decision that made by you, what was it really made? I mean, it transformed, and it became a success. What would it be?
I think it goes back to one of the original questions. There's actually a couple of answers to this. The first one is make it as simple as possible. You don't design your product for rocket scientists, design it for the actual users and really understand what the users want. This was key to the UDrive initial success because we were doing something different in the market that didn't exist already, which was digital car rental without deposits, renting the car on the street with a mobile phone, opening the car remotely. So we needed the limited number of touch points as possible for the customer to get in the car and start driving. This is key. This is key. It doesn't matter what you're building, whether it's physical or virtual. You need to make sure the experience is super easy and intuitive for the customer based on what they currently know, and then you can educate them over time towards what might be a more complicated environment or user experience for the customer. The second was choosing product that the customers really need. So that we have two audiences really, other than where they come from. You have utility usage, which is what we call body movers. They need to move their body from one place to another. They don't care what it's in, as long as it's clean, got four wheels, safe, and it has petrol in it, right? And so we effectively take any brand and we digitize it and we make sure it's available for those types of customers. And then you have experiential customers, the ones that are doing this for an experience. They want to do something cool. They want to go on date night. They want to go and have a journey with the car. And so this is why this is one of the big things that changed the UDrive brand is we put Mustangs on the platform. So one of the first car sharing companies in the world where you could drive a muscle car on the street, anytime, anywhere, right? And of course, this comes with people saying, yes, but people will be really naughty. No, maybe you will because you're thinking it, but 99.9% of our customers are good people. They're genuinely wanting the experience. And so we don't build the company for that small portion of people that might be naughty. We build it for the people who are genuinely wanting an experience. And so the Mustangs was a big game changer for us because it attracted a big audience of people that aren't just looking for utility value, they're looking for an experience. And so we have a lot of new product coming online at the moment and in 2023 where it'll be very experiential. And it won't be just about going from point A to B or moving your body. It'll be an experience in itself. And I think that's where the future mobility is going. There is utility value, but there's always that emotional attachment to doing something for a reason outside of moving yourself from one place to another. So I think in the end, that was one of the biggest drivers for our success. It was a purely emotional approach, not a transactional, tactical approach that eventually came in to be very successful for us. Like we have more trips in Mustangs than we do some of the economic cars. So it's a more expensive product to get into, but it was worth it, and it changed the aura of UDrive. We became a more fun brand than just a traditional car rental company.
I know you have expressed your passion in guiding and mentoring other entrepreneurs and businesses. And very interestingly, earlier this year, you completed another strong funding, round. I mean, keys to success to a lot of entrepreneurial businesses are funding. So what will be your advice for startups and entrepreneurs when it comes to successful raising funds? How do you really, I will not say you will get, how do you get the attention of investors in general? Except the returns,
Yeah, look, obviously having a strong vision and having a good documentation that explains very easily what it is you're planning on doing, how you're going to get there, where you're going to place the funds, and why you're better than your competition, whether your competition is traditional industry or it's the same, innovative type startups. Information needs to be easy to digest. It needs to be digestible by people who may not fully understand, depending on who you're pitching VCs, they will understand more what you're trying to achieve and the future vision. But if you're pitching traditional industry that has money and they're looking to invest in something new, then you have to talk to them in terms that they understand and then show them how you're going to bridge into the new world. I think that's one piece of advice. You can't just go around throwing out really attractive words and hot topic names, because they won't be able to connect necessarily with where they're sitting and what that future looks like. So take them on a journey. I mean, it's just like you drive car. You've got to take them from A to Z, and you've got to do it in a way where they can digest it and they can see the application. And of course, in that process, you also have to have a good business model. You have to have a business model that can show one day a route to profitability. And to do that, you start talking about the unit economics and how you'll scale up the unit economics, and you'll have additional economies of scale and all these other financial requirements that might be needed in providing a profitable business. The other key part is that you have to treat it like sales. It sounds hard for entrepreneurs to hear, especially if they're technical people and they're not salesy or they're not marketing related. But pitching an investor is selling. I mean, you're selling your dream to someone else and trying to convince them that this is worth investing in. And I think people find this difficult, especially if they're not naturally a salesperson. And in that case, if you're not a great salesperson or you're not gifted with sales, find somebody who is. Because be great at what you are and try to be better at things you're not. But in the end, if you're trying to raise money, sometimes you only get one chance to pitch an investor, and you need to make sure you nail it. It doesn't mean it has to be perfect. It needs to be understood. And they need to know where you're going from and where you're going to. And then you can go deeper in the conversation with the investors. So if you're not good at that, then definitely have a co-founder who has got more of a gift for sales or communication. It doesn't have to be a great salesperson. It needs to be someone who can communicate the message to the target audience that you're going after. Another thing also I would definitely recommend is stop relying on digital tools to make relationships happen, because everybody's doing it. It's not difficult to go on LinkedIn and in-mail someone. It's great. LinkedIn's great, and these digital tools are great for finding the right people and filtering out who you want to target and knowing more about your target investor. But in the end, sometimes just pick up the phone and pitch them, especially in the Middle East and the African regions. It's very personable industry. People are sometimes afraid to pick up the phone and call someone who is not experienced, is not somebody you know already, or is not a warm target. But there's nothing wrong with cold calling. And some people will probably disagree with me on this, but I've never raised money from a guy that I had a warm relationship with. So the proof is you can raise money, and the difference between being a cold relationship and warm relationship could be 3 minutes. But you can't translate that amount of information in 3 minutes over LinkedIn. You can't convey passion, you can't convey enthusiasm, you can't overcome any sort of objection the investor might have or the people you're speaking to might have. So in the end, voice is always the fastest. It may not be the best if you're not great at it. Sometimes people will default to LinkedIn, and that is not a problem, but I would always recommend you get as quickly to a face-to-face or a digital face-to-face environment as quickly as possible, so they can see your passion, they can see your enthusiasm. And in most times, people will invest in you, not the company, because they believe you will take the company where it needs to go based on the money you're going to receive. And so in the end, 50% of our investors, in VC especially, they invest in the entrepreneurs, right? Because effectively you have nothing, you're going to go build it. And if they don't believe you can sell your dream, then how are you going to actually build your dream? And so that's the confidence you need to give. This is, after all, it is humans who are investing in you after all.
Okay, that's great. So, I mean, before I go to the audience, let me ask you the last question. So if you go back in time, what would you do differently?
Oh my God. Invent a time machine so I can go to the future, talk to my future self to understand what I learned in those 10 years, and then go back and then do it. I think from a startup point of view, what we could have done better, and this is not just in UDrive, in other stuff that I've worked on, focused much more energy on making sure that the teams that I'm working with and the partners we're working with are fully aligned to what we expect the product to be. So the quality of the product, the output of the product, that when you're in a multicultural environment like the UAE and the GCC as a whole, and even the world is becoming multicultural anyway because of open borders, the last thing you want to do is assume that your employees, your customers, and your partners all understand the value of a dollar the same way you do, and understand the value of the product the way you do. And I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that our entrepreneurs, and even myself, I fell into this trap several times, will assume that because you love the product, everybody else will love the product. And that might be true, but they'll love it in a different way. And the value for them of your product might be greater than what you get from it, or it might be less. And so this is a big problem for you when you build a product, because what you think is amazing may not actually be amazing to 2/3 of your audience. It might be okay. And then what is it you're required to do to make it amazing for them? And we're learning every day what our customers want. So for us, I think my biggest learning experiences as a whole was making sure that the team is aligned with what the product is going to be, and making sure that their alignment is matching what the company's vision is. Because in the end, if they think clean is this, but in reality, clean is supposed to be this, there is a big gap. And this is what we are always striving towards, is to make sure that the definition of what the product should look like and be to the customer is exactly how it should be according to the values of the company. So yeah, that would be, I mean, that's quite operational. If you want something aspirational, it'd be more along the lines of, it's never as bad as it looks, always divide it by 2. Right? So whatever you're doing in life, it's never easy. It's not supposed to be. That's why life is a challenge. But don't fall into the trap of spiraling out of control when something bad happens. It's not always as bad as you might perceive it to be, especially if you are tired, lack of sleep, you've had a really bad day. Take a break, go to sleep, wake up the next day and evaluate your options, and then look at how you can deal with the problem. Because in the end, if you think it through, you'll almost always find a solution to the problem. It might not be an easy solution, but there's always a solution to it. And I think in the end, startups sometimes, through just sheer aggressive energy, they lose sight of taking a step back and looking at how bad is this really. And there's always someone that can help you, always. Whether you know them or not is up to you, but there's always a way to find someone that has been where you've been. And you should be looking for these people all the time and never giving up. Don't just look for them when the problems occur. Look for them as mentors or other opportunities. And I wish I had a lot more of that. I had some great mentors in my first couple of years, which helped me build skill set and capacity and resilience as well. But in the end, when you move into new industry, you have to find people who believe in you and want to share their knowledge with you. And that'd be the one gift that I would part on to any startup. Even if you're an arrogant founder who believes you've got a great product and you have a great product, it doesn't matter. You don't know everything. You will in 10 years, but you won't now. So you might as well go find someone who's done it before.
Great. So, I can see, if you look at your right side, you see a lot of comments. I can see a lot of questions down there. So I think maybe it's the time to move to the Q&A from the audience.
Sure.
So let's see. We have the first question. Digital transformation was important in helping you transform your business to ensure that you aren't absolute. How did you convince your decision maker to make this change?
So what actually happened was we had an internal person who needed to rent a car. We were a rental car company. We had no cars available. We obviously, because we had no cars available, we then asked them to go get a car, but they only needed it for an hour for some PRO work. And then it was weird. It's an obvious thing, but they needed a car for an hour, and the only way they could get a car was by the day. And we were renting cars only by the day. And we started digging into the rabbit hole. We started realizing, well, actually, people who are renting the car by the day are only using it for 2.5 hours anyway in a day. So what's it doing for the rest of the day? And that led to a process thinking where we're like, there's got to be lots of people out there who only want a car for an hour or for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, or just want a one-way trip, right? And so that filtered into the brain, and it took about a couple of weeks, but eventually we're like, there's a bigger audience out there and more money available on the table for people like that than there is for daily rental. And also it's a blue ocean, which means that there's no competition in the market. So effectively, you can do whatever you want until they move over. And even now, there's still only us and another company called eCar here in the region. Nobody else is doing what we're doing. We have other companies coming for aggregation, but they're not building a digital experience. They're just aggregating from other players' cars. So it wasn't a hard decision. It was an organic decision that took a little bit of time to percolate and switch our mindset too. But once we made the decision, that was it. It was a done deal.
So we'll go to Sania or Seema. How early on or later on in your journey did you focus on marketing for U-Drive?
So this is, I think it's a little bit of a unique situation for us. Because we were the first and we were the only ones when we launched, we got a lot of viral hit, right? So we got we had a product that you could rent on the street with your mobile phone. You could drive for 1 minute. You don't have to rent the car for the day. And so it went viral. And one of the I say it's a bit of like growth hacking and marketing hacking. Hasib had an awesome idea. He basically took the 40 cars. We had about 100 in the first launch. He took 40 cars and parked them all outside ITP's office and blocked all their parking. ITP being the big media company in the region, this is back before COVID, everybody's working at the office, all the PR people showed up, or the writers showed up, and there was no parking spaces available for them, but because it was taken up by all the U-Drive cars. And so then we had the PR agency there, and they went into the building and they called the editors, and they started explaining to them this new service, and it went viral very quickly. And I think that, plus the fact that the product is naturally a very easy product to use, it has a very good viral coefficient between customers recommending to other people. We've never actually had to do paid advertising up until the beginning of this year. Prior to that, it was all organic social media. It was just adding more cars, doing some general PR in total where we raised money, or we launched Mustangs, we put the BMWs on the platform and stuff like this. But general top level marketing, we've never really had to do digital marketing. Only reason we started now is because we have so much growth for the cars that we want to acquire customers for the cars where we're launching those fleet in new markets, like in Riyadh and Jeddah and stuff like this. So we're growing. We're obviously going into a fresh market. Do we want to take an organic approach? Yes. We want to have good product. We want to have an easy access, but we also want to speed that up a little bit more now because we've already proven out the business model, and that's what the UAE was for us. It was an awesome location to build operational efficiency, operational excellence, to prove out the business model, being a gross profitable business, and then expanding that into other markets. So when we go to Saudi Arabia, and we're operating in Saudi right now, we don't want to take 2 years to get to the same size customer base. We want to take 6 months, right? It's a different attitude when you're in growth scale. And so that's where we are right now. So to answer the question, we were forced into paid advertising because we want to go faster. But in the first 3 years of U-Drive's life, it was quite organic, and we were very comfortable with that because we were still learning ourselves on the pricing and stuff.
So, a question from Hussein, as a company that deals in both tech and asset owning space, which one do you think is more challenging to manage?
So we're quite fortunate. We're an OPEX business, so we don't actually own the cars. There is a portion of the fleet we do own, which is up to about 20%. We would be willing to do, but we work with leasing companies, and we take a long-term lease from them, and we fractionalize it down to 1 minute. To connect the conversation piece, we're responsible for the asset, so we're technically like the owner. We just don't have the financial loan responsibility. So we're responsible for the quality of the car, handing it back after 2 years, If we're operating it poorly, then the leasing company doesn't like us, just like a bank wouldn't like us if we were not looking after the asset value of the car. The big challenge for us is blending ownership and usership of an asset with technology, because effectively the asset may not be owned by us, but we're offering the customer experience through a digital means. So I think it's a 50-50. The reality is it's a physical asset and it's on the street. So you need to make sure it's clean. You need to make sure that it's kept in good condition. You need to make sure it's very safe. In today's world, you have to make sure it's virally free. There's a lot of complexity that you can make efficient through experience. And so that's the biggest challenge with owning an asset. And then the other side is the technology side of things. The technology is very easy to develop, but it has to be something that would work with the physical world, because our technology is virtual. It's a mobile app. It's an IoT, it's a data coming in and out of the cars. And so we have to interface with the physical world. So I think, in honestly answering the question, I think if I wake up in the morning and if I'm worrying about something, I'm worrying about both pieces in equal size. How many cars can I get because it's physical? And how can I digitize them? And then how can I make sure that they're always digital and always available for our customer?
So we'll go to Basma. What do you feel needs to change for P2P to work for more people to embrace?
I think you're frozen again, Shakir. But I think I can read it. I think Matt Basma has asked, what do you feel needs to change for P2P to work or for more people to embrace it? So I think from our point of view, there's some regulation change in certain countries that needs to change. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, there's security. There's security reason about who's driving the cars and what for and stuff like this. And then there's the commercial licensing side of it, which most markets are maturing towards now. I give you an example. In the UAE, it's actually illegal for you to generate income from your car, but not from your property, your rental, your house, right? So, but those laws are changing, and I think the market is really moving, especially the UAE is moving towards generate income from your assets. And then in the side of rolling out to individuals, if you're an individual that owns a car and you're doing P2P, you have to become extremely comfortable with other people using your asset. So if you've done Airbnb with your property, you're probably culturally aligned to renting out your car, but renting out your car is very different. So for example, if you rent out your car to someone else, you have to accept the fact that if they drive fast and hit a speed bump, the undercarriage of your car will be damaged and you will not know when they bring it back. But 10 trips later, the oil will start leaking and they'll start realizing there's issues. And so you have to be ready to accept the damage that might happen to a car because of somebody else's behavior. And I can tell you that most people are good behaved. They don't have the intention of destroying an engine, right, or a gearbox, but sometimes it happens. And so the customer has to be ready for it. We're ready to do that as a business because that's our day job, right? But individuals putting their car on the platform, they're not fully aware of these frictions. And so this is an educational process. And so when the market is ready enough, we'll be super happy to provide P2P. Technologically, we're ready. We have the capacity to do it, but the rules, the regulation, and in some cases, the culture needs to be there. And I think, again, like before I mentioned, 1 to 3 years is going to be there.
So I have a question from Dr. Michael. Is flying jet cars?
Sure, why not? People are struggling to drive safely on the ground, let alone while they're in the sky. I think in the end, by the time we get to flying jet cars in a real big society way, where it's genuinely there, it will probably be autonomous. And so you may not actually be the person flying the vehicle. You might feel like you are, but you're probably not, because trusting someone to drive in a straight line in any city anyway is one thing, but trying to get them to follow virtual lanes is another. So I think that'll probably become an autonomous type environment rather than a self-driven type environment. But we're up for it. Whenever the product's ready, we're ready to lease it and put it on the platform.
So we'll go to Mira. She's asking, how does the U-Drive pricing model work? Does it fluctuate based on the petrol prices?
So in reality, no, it doesn't. It changes in boundaries of pricing. So when petrol last year through to this year went from 1 dirham 50 to 3 dirhams, we absorbed that cost because we weren't feeling comfortable having to pass the costs every day. We want our customers to wake up in the morning and go, I know a U-Drive car is always going to be 99 dirhams or 110 or 120, depending on the vehicle, the make and the model, and I'll get that product for that price. So for us, it's important that they can budget their life around it. You don't want to go on a site and find out today it's 10 dirhams and then tomorrow it's 50 dirhams, and it creates complications for the customer. So we absorbed it, but it came to a point where we couldn't absorb anymore when it started to get hit 2 dirhams 80, 3 dirhams 50. So we then had to raise the prices. So we were only raising it by the margin required to cover the petrol, not to generate additional income out of our customers and take advantage. We're not intending to make money out of the negatives of car rental, fees, damage, penalties, this sort of stuff. That's the incumbent industry. Our business model is to make money out of your utilization. If you make a mistake, we're like, it happens. We will have to recover that cost if it's a speeding ticket, but we're trying to move away from generating or creating negative scenarios as a revenue generating activity. It's the same as if you go to a supermarket and you charge a credit card and it doesn't go through, and then the shop goes, I'm going to charge you 30 fils for the false charge. Like, it just wouldn't happen. And we're trying to avoid that with our platform as we grow.
Fantastic. Okay, so we'll go to the last question. Uber was hacked a few weeks back. What measures has U-Drive taken to let that doesn't happen to U-Drive? And what is your latest security protocols?
Good question. I think we follow pretty good. I'm not going to say excellent, because I don't think anybody's excellent at cybersecurity. Otherwise, Uber wouldn't have got hacked. We're pretty good at following best practice. I have worked in the cybersecurity industry with companies in that space, so I have relationships, and we do audits every quarter. We do white hacking, where people come and try to break into our infrastructure. I'm not inviting anybody to please do that, but we do want to know where the cracks are and where the issues are. We run on GDPR compliant third-party companies where we use a third party, so obviously AWS, Azure, and other companies we work with. In the end, most hacks come from people, social engineering. And so the best way to avoid getting hacked, and that's what happened with Uber, as it turns out, is to try and either limit the risk with your employees or educate your employees that have exposure to certain data sets or certain information. And as to protocols, I can't tell you exactly what the protocols are because I don't want to give any of the information out, but we are working and trying to strive towards best practice, especially as we scale up and have more exposure to more customers.
Great. So I think it's, it seems to be, all that what we have today. So I would like to thank Nicholas for your time and for your generous insight. Thank you for everyone for attending today, especially the audience. I hope you all enjoyed. Please look out for any announcement of our next innovation journey event coming soon. So Nicholas, thank you very much, and I hope to see you very soon.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Shukran.